G'day, welcome to Mark and Sam After Work. Today I want to do a video, as said, on the pursuit of the ultimate ELR cartridge. I suppose I'd start the video for those people coming here to find out what the ultimate ELR cartridge is. I haven't got an answer, this is just the pursuit of it. And to go through the fact that I'm only part way through that testing, but I wanted to pass on, again I have in various formats, but I want to pass on again exactly what I found and where I'm heading. And well, I suppose, where does that start from? It starts from, first of all, ELR, it's not a distance. Not in my opinion, it's not a distance. It is an extreme long range for the caliber and conditions you're thinking of shooting. So that could be 500 yards for a 22 long rifle, and it can be 4 miles for a big, extraordinary, exceptional cartridge. But largely what I'm talking about is something to shoot in the way of, I suppose it's a little bit what people use shooting competitions with the likes of King of 2 Miles and that sort of stuff, but it's feasibly, as long as you can shoot in in conditions you're going to find that are practical to be able to use in a format that you can do as I would tend to do it and recommend to do it as a shooter and spotter team. So not forward spotters and not forward electronic equipment and that sort of stuff, but actually being able to shoot, see, control on a normal human's budget and all that sort of stuff with a fairly normal rifle. So that's really 3,000 yards, 3,500 yards, might be going as far as 4,000 yards, but in that 3Ks to 2 miles sort of distance. So that's really what I'm talking about and what I'm trying to find around that does that really well. Testing I've done, well, there's in all sorts of things. Some of it I've done and completed the task and found it very successful. Others I've just been testing and developing and working out loads and working out bullets and all that sort of stuff. And that ranges from, I'll run through what's in front of us. This is a bit of eye candy. Start off with, this is a chassis from Gareth over at GCPD Arms. Which is a chassis built for us, running one of our bipod systems on the front of it, 7x35 attacker scope on it, Remington 700 action. It's actually chambered and sitting here in 300 rum, but it's also looked pretty similar, 2 inches shorter barrel, 1 inch shorter barrel in 300 PRC. It's one of the rifles we've used, but it is a fairly well set up in sort of the type of rifle I'm talking about. But I've also used factory rifles. I'll run through what I've got in front, the 50 BMG,
Oh, just over top. 12 o'clock, just over top.
Which we haven't put through steel, but we're developing our own bullet, but that's starting to work really well and starting to perform pretty well. But is the big end of buffing you around and big rifles and lots of expense, and not more accuracy for all that effort, certainly more energy, certainly more power, but not more accuracy. The 416 Barrett,
Oh, Jack, they hit. It hit. It must have gone through. Got it hit at 9 o'clock, edge of plate. Plate moving, there was dust behind.
Which is the next one down, which we've punched a hole through steel out at 3,800 yards, so shoots really well, performing really well. Once again, heavy end of the scale. Down from that, our 375 Gib. Shot through at 4,000 meters, hit steel. That's the one we've been using for the very long shot at 5,000.
Oh, just left bottom corner, dust. Wow, that was close.
Wow.
That was close.
That was definitely a just haven't been running into conditions for the last over a year now, so maybe this season will come up, but that's certainly proven itself, thoroughly proven itself, but once again in the big hitter range. And it's actually a 375 Shytac improved. It's an improved chamber, and we've named it the Gibbs for us, but that's what that is. Next one down, which shot out 2 miles, First one we did many, many years ago, and that's the 338 Lapua.
Hit. Bottom left. Right on edge of target. Hit. Good shot, mate. Just on edge of
Down
target.
here, not got on target, but starting to perform pretty well. Only had one crack at it. Only really haven't even fully developed the load. Not even run the bullet we want to run yet, but that's the 300 rum.
Oh, dust just behind target. I think it was just off right edge, but it was basically behind the
Performed
target.
really well, really liked it. Down from that, 300 Win Mag.
Hit on plate. 3 o'clock.
An old
2 inches.
sort of semi-forgotten sort of round, being used to compare against all sorts of things as it's not good as. It is very, very good, but we've used a lot. Sorry, that's this one. The one in front of it is the 300 PRC. New kit on the block, pretty decent. I'll talk about that later. That's the difference between that and the 300 Win Mag. Haven't tried to push the 300 PRC out there, but yes, it'll work. It's going to do the job, very similar. But like I said, I'll talk about that later on. Next down, 7mm rim bag.
Hit. Got him.
Another one from
On
a fair
plate.
while ago. Doesn't get spoken about a lot, but it did it very easily. Probably the easiest one to get on at over 2 miles, for how easy the rifle shot, how easy it worked. Probably a little bit under horsepower, a little bit under power out at range, but still performed really nicely, and I was very happy how it actually did the job, but could be improved. Next one down is a conversation which I'll get to as well, but that's a pair of 6.5s. It's a 6.5 Sorm. It's actually the 6.5 4 air scap Sorm.
Oh, 9 o'clock. 3/4 of target left.
Short action Ultra Magnum. The tall skinny one is a 6.506, so actually improved. So that's a 3006 neck down to a 6.5 with a 30 degree or 15 degree shoulder, 30 degree shoulder, 40 degree shoulder, sorry, which is actually improved. And then the last one down from there, which we've shot out there, only one effort, not the right conditions for it, but that's right down a little tiny 6mm Sorm. So 6mm. Short action Ultra Magnum.
Left and tall. Just
Okay, so
off.
that's the range of that
What
for the
a-
people who want to know what the cartridges are. That's what they are. What I've actually found and where I'm at with this process. Well, the simple details are, it depends on your conditions and what you're shooting. But if you've got good conditions, so you can see your dirt, you can see your impacts. And what I'm talking about there is, if you're shooting into a grassy hill and you're trying to see 2 miles away, and it's a green grassy hill with wet ground, very, very hard to see impacts out there to try and get yourself onto target. For those people thinking, well, you want to set it up for a first shot hit, well, tell them they're dreaming. How's that go for an answer? Realistically, only luck will get you on as a first shot hit out there. Really, 2 shots if you're really lucky, but very good with a little bit of luck. Really, it's 3 to 4 shots is the real amount of shots it's going to take to get onto range. And yes, that's even in the military, that's even for all the stories you've heard. There's either luck or there's something else involved. Something else can be, it's a designated spot where people have actually shot, got the dope, got everything figured out, so they are dialed in for those conditions before they have to do that shot. Or like I said, there's a bit of luck involved. But generally you're going to walk onto target because you cannot see the wind. If nothing else, you cannot see the wind at 200 feet in the middle of the air where there's nothing going on. You cannot see it, you cannot read it, so you have to find it with a discovery round, make an adjustment. Generally, like I said, if you're really, really good, next shot on target. Generally, discovery round, adjustment, discovery round, and then you actually now have your excuses are running out and you've got to be able to do it as long as your conditions aren't changing. So first shots hit's not what we're talking about and not realistic thing to go for. But when you cannot see the dirt, when you cannot see your impacts onto the ground, then you can't adjust. So it means that if you've got poor conditions for ELR, like I said, grassy hill, a little bit rock, but more trees or tall grass, or that sort of stuff where you can't see the impacts. And the only way to try and do that, you can't use bullet trace out there. To start off with, your bullet trace is very set to sort of distances in the way of what you're able to focus on, but it is also only to do with supersonic. It's about the sonic cone, so you can only see that sonic cone when it's supersonic. In ELR, you've always gone subsonic, so you don't even have a bullet trace. You don't have that sonic cone to look at. So you have to see your impacts. So poor conditions, the bigger rounds win. The 50 BMGs, the 416s, a little bit of 375s, but really the bigger you get, just so you can see your impacts. The negative with that, and I suppose a lot of people would say, okay, so well, that's what you use the big ones. The big ones are better. They fly better. They've got more speed. They've got more power, so they're better. Well, no, they cost more to run. We're not talking about cost so much, but you've got to keep it involved. Bigger platforms, harder to move, bigger rifles, that sort of stuff to make them shoot. Yeah, okay, let's ignore that as well. Well, then it comes down to the fact that there's two things. Generally more barrel length, so there's more acceleration, so there's more time of the bullet in the barrel, so there's, with any movement, any harmonics and things, they're more affected. But also, the more push happening down here, the more the shooter's getting moved around, the more the platform is needing to respond to that explosion, the less inherent accuracy you have out of it. So there's a negative to go with all that power. Well, there's a few negatives actually. Doesn't mean it's not the right one for your situation, but there is some negatives attached to it. If we jump straight to the other end, the little ones, really easy to shoot. Little 6mm, 6.5s, that sort of stuff, even the 7mm, really, really easy to, you don't need too much rifle. Not to say you don't need a decent rifle, but you don't need too much rifle you'll find they shoot very accurately. You know, for all the moderately new shooters and old shooters have got themselves a 6.5 Creedmoor or a 6mm Creedmoor and that sort of stuff, and found how easy the thing deals with the conditions within reason, how easy they are to shoot. They are not quite, but almost a point and shoot thing. Yes, there is all those advantages, but that little bullet doesn't have the BC, doesn't have the energy, doesn't carry the speed out there, so it slows down, it gets pushed around, and it's almost impossible to see. Unless you have the perfect conditions, you really can't see where you hit. So unless you've got the perfect conditions, no matter how much rifle you've got, the little ones are going to struggle. So we come into the mid-range, and really what I'm looking for when I say the ultimate is, as I said, I'll bracket it to, it's got some good conditions. I'm talking in the 3,000 to 4,000 yards. Let's say that's sort of the place I'm talking about in a ELR. So you're probably moving into ULR is really what I'm targeting. But of course, if something does really well at 2 miles, it's going to do even better at 2,500 yards. Although the little ones might start to have some advantages, it's still going to do really well there. And that's what I'm trying to end up with. So if we come to that mid-range, and I'm talking, well, I suppose most of the testing I've done at the moment, I'd really come to where I'm around a 200 grain bullet. So where the 200 to 250 grains is where you can carry enough energy, you get a decent BC, you've not got too much shove going on, and maybe that goes to 300. I started with the 300 grain in the 338 Lapua, and a bit more rifle. Yes, that would work, but they don't quite run the BC that I would like to see. So you're probably running into a heavier bullet in a 338 caliber, in a 330 or that neck of the woods to get to that place. And there's another whole conversation about monolithic versus jacketed. I prefer jacketed for this job, but that's another whole conversation by itself. But if we look at energy and BC and the powerhouse of the carried energy by a lead core bullet, then it tends to work in that 300 to 7mm. That 250 to 200 grain is sort of where I've been dialing in on. So to start off with, to do that testing, I really went back to the 300 Win Mag, and I was doing in this chassis here the 300 PRC comparison. 300 PRC performed very well. I was very happy how it performed. I was using a 230 grain bullet. It shot really well. Was in a very nice, as you can see, very nice chassis, so the platform was really good. The cartridge performed decently. It could only deal with X amount of pressure. I couldn't quite get the speed that I'd hoped to get with the heavier bullet, but it was still right up there, still performed really well. And I decided then, in a slightly lesser chassis, slightly lesser combination, to compare it with the same length barrel, same twist, same weight bullet to the 300 Win Mag. I found at that place that in the 230 grain bullets, they were very comparable, very, very comparable. But the first lot of the heavier 30 cals came out, which was the 250 grain. I've got it in the rum here, the 250 grain A-tip, or the aluminium tipped. So that actually has a decent step up in BC. And it was the first one we tested. And in that place, the 300 PRC performed and did it properly, but I had to back my pressures off a little, my powder off a little bit more, because I was starting to get a little bit of an overpressure. To my surprise, at that stage, I hadn't figured this stuff through. I found that the 300 Win Mag actually could run a little more powder with a little less pressure, so I was getting a little better efficiency. I was getting a little more speed out of very similarly set up cartridges. Now I came and I did a video about that, going through and explaining what I figure is going on. And it's actually the tall thin one versus the short fat one, only a little bit of difference in them. Those are the two in the middle there. But what is inherently a little bit of a negative in the 300 Win Mag for lighter bullets, which means it's places where you've heard it compared to a 6.5 Creedmoor, as to the 6.5 Creedmoor is better than a 300 Win Mag. Listen, it's a load of rubbish, but it's actually about a particular thing. It's taking a case that's not designed to run a light bullet and shooting it for a light bullet, and then taking a case that's designed to run X bullet and comparing it with that. So you're getting a very uneven equation, probably put that way because they were deliberately trying to prove a point. But it's actually also the fact that the case, like I said, the 300 Win Mag, and what I found is okay. It's a decent round, don't get me wrong. But once you start to put heavy bullets in it, it really starts to step up. And I won't get into too much about that now, but it really started to step up to the point where I found I was getting better results out of it than the PRC for the heavy bullets. Now, for all the people with their PRC that want to be the best in the world because they just bought it or they've just been sold or whatever it is, I'm not trying to say that the PRC is a bad round by any means. And I think in the 208, 215, 220, 225, even the 230s, it definitely is very, very good. Once I went over that point, it still performed, but it just didn't perform quite as well as the 300 Win Mag. I got quite a few comments, and yeah, like I said, a little bit of hurt feelings about how that was a comparison they didn't want to hear. There's another ingredient that I hadn't put into it, and that's a little bit because I didn't fully understand it at that stage. I hadn't put the rest of the equation into it, and that was a 29-inch barrel. And there's the extra key that makes this make sense. If I was doing that same comparison, now they are 1 9 twist barrels, they're both matched chambers, both with the throating push forward to be able to run the longer bullets, so I'd settle that up. All that, they both had that same thing going on. Like I said, both 1 9 twist. The big key was they were also both 29-inch barrels. Now, if I'd done that exact same test in a factory thing, then I would have been comparing factory chambers, so you can't really do that with wherever the bullet's set up and yada yada. Generally not set up to suit a larger bullet like the 250 grain. But even just the 26-inch barrel that you would normally get them in, the reason that the 300 Win Mag would be getting that extra speed was because that extra 3-inch barrel, because of the nature of the tall, and this is my theory of it, because of that nature of that thin, tall powder stack, is that it then doesn't burn in the case so quickly. You could say it's less efficient than what the PRC is. The PRC burns its powder more efficiently. At the end of the day, with the heavy bullet, that ends up being a negative, because all the bang's trying to happen too early, and that's causing the overpressure. Whereas by having the tall, thinner case, what's actually happening is the bang is happening slower, which means more of the bang is happening, so you're getting more explosions still happening as the bullet's going down the barrel. So it's actually the other ingredient, which I didn't say out loud then because I hadn't followed the thought all the way through, but the other ingredient is the long barrel. If I'd done it in a 26-inch barrel comparison, I probably would have found no benefits. I wouldn't have found the benefits I did find out of the 300 Win Mag. So it is about optimized, it is about ELR, and that's what I'm talking about, that's what I'm testing, but I think that would be the extra ingredient. So in that situation, that sort of made sense. I got those results, I was really happy with it. But as I did a video about, that opened up the door for me to try something that I'd sort of been a little bit busting to try. And that was the 300 rum, which is this one here. And the reason for that is that the 300 rum had always sort of made sense, but I'd never seen the data to go with it. And generally the data that I was looking at things, they were shooting 180 grain bullets or 200 grain bullets or 208s or 215s or 220s or even 230s. I hadn't quite seen the maths to make sense of all the horsepower. It's like you're getting more barrel wear and not enough speed to justify for it. Lots of people loved it. Lots of people didn't have the figures to back it up. But it said to me, if the tall, thin thing actually works and actually works with the longer barrel, I think it'll work with the 250 grain bullet. And that's the rifle you're looking at here with the long barrel, 30-inch barrel, and 1 in 9 twist. Got one of my big muzzle brakes on it. This thing, beautiful, loved it. Shot really well. Only one attempt at, I think it was 3,800 yards or something like that. Not quite sorted out. I was dealing with a little bit of a brass issue at that time, which I think I figured out now also, but the not too much pressure, but a little bit sticking brass. So like I said, dealing with it. Once I've tested that, I'll let you know what I found. But it really, really was doing exactly what I'd hoped it to, and I suspect if I'm not fighting with a bolt, not doing that sort of stuff, that this will be very good out there. But fair bit of a rifle. We've got a this is a 21-pound rifle, or 22-pound rifle as it is, with a big bull barrel all the way through. Very good chassis, all very good. Just a true Remington 700 action, but performed really well, and I was really happy shooting it. Equally, I'm 6'4", 220 pounds, 225 pounds with my boots on type stuff, so I've got a bit of weight carrying to me, so it suits for the big guy. Is it going to suit for everyone, and is it as nice as it possibly could be? So I think it's a really, really good option. Is it the ultimate for what I'm chasing? I'm really not sure. One that I'm sort of thinking might fit really nicely into this, which I'm sure has been done, but I haven't seen it yet myself, but I probably am going to try and make happen next season as well, along with all the other things I'm trying to do, which I keep in mind. If you'd like to help us, like to support us, please do. We're trying to spend a fair bit to do this sort of stuff, to pass this stuff on. But anyway, back onto the story. Is something similar to what a lot of people have used, which is the 7mm practical. But trying to combine all that knowledge and a little bit of testing along, and that would be a 7mm PRC. Because I think, and maybe not, but bear with me, I think when I looked at the advantage I found in a 6.5 SAWM versus a 6.5 06, which was monstrous. The SAWM compared to the tall thin was really handicapped with the little bore and the little bullet. It was still a 150 grain bullet, but it was still severely handicapped in comparison to the SAWM. The SAWM, the short fat, outperformed it easily. I move into the heavier bullets. In the 250 grain bullets, in a 30, the bore size is relevant, but the heavier bullets, then it's only subtle, but the tall thin actually tiny bit stepped in front with a long barrel, but it's the heavier bullet. So I'm sort of going in the middle of that, and the 7mm PRC seems to sort of ring all the things. I know there is a 7mm practical, and I probably would ultimately have to test it against that as well. But I've got a feeling that we're going to get both, because we're actually only got X amount of barrel to use. We can only burn, even though it's long, it's small. There's only so much powder there. We need a bit more of the energy in the chamber, is my theory. Listen, it's a little bit of it is definitely a guess, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe the 7mm practical is the best one for that sort of stuff. But I suppose the more help I get, the more I can do, the more I can test. But my feelings are heading towards maybe that that it's obviously an efficient design, and it's designed to burn a lot of the powder very efficiently in the chamber with the PRC. With a long barrel with a 195 grain Berger 7mm bullet, which is probably what I'd be using, that might come into that place where it's that sweet spot. The 7mm Rem Mag performed very well, performed very, very well. but another 10 grains of powder in an efficient case with probably the same sort of thing, a 29 or a 30-inch barrel. Maybe it's 28-inch barrel, I don't know. But in that sort of length, do I get that little bit extra where it carries a little bit more energy? It's a little bit further out there. It's really, really, really nice to shoot. It's a smaller bullet, but it's not too small. It's in that 200, well, it's just under 195, but that 200 to 250. So I end up with that something that's that little tiny bit nicer to shoot and still performing as I want it to be. I don't really know, and I suppose I would go with conditions king as always. They're in charge, and we've got to deal with what they are. And the moment you move them to a different place, then ultimate is there's no such actual thing. It's the best for these conditions, and the thing that one size fits all, there isn't that thing. You know, the one size fits all of a caliber is the one that has the best average over score, yeah, for sure, but you're always going to be in a compromise one place or another. But it's one that, if nothing else, it really screams to me, and that's this one here in a 7mm. So this bullet in that one there, I think would work really nicely, and it's something I'm looking forward to testing. The other one, which I haven't mentioned, and I should have mentioned amongst all that, which I am building at this moment, haven't quite settled on the chassis system, we've got to put it in and that sort of thing, but that's the 300 Norma, and I really want to do that comparison alongside the 300 Rum. For all the 300 Norma fans, once again, a reasonably new cartridge, and there's a lot of fans for it because the military picked it up and all the stuff that goes with it. Listen, it may well be better than the Rump, and I'm not saying it wouldn't be, and most people would say it would be. I'm not certain if I'm going to see a little bit the same sort of thing as the PRC versus the 300 Win Mag, but ultimately I don't have a horse in the race. I'm just after whatever the results are and then trying to make sense of it and try and steer it into other places. And I get to test other cartridges and shoot them out there and do what I love to do, shoot at that extreme long range, and see how that should perform. And I'll always try and put it back to not just what the video said, not just how the shoot went, try and also do a bit of dynamic comparison when we're talking about the conditions we're actually dealing with and how that helped or hindered. And there's things I would want to point out to those people that don't realise. You see people saying, oh, that was a super still day, so that should have been really easy, or that's the perfect day to do it. Super calm isn't as good as you think. There's a good constant mild to moderate breeze is generally easier to use than what appears to be really calm. Because in really calm, you'll always get wind, just generally, at least all the times I've ever tried it, it's actually very light, but it's always sort of swapping around. Sometimes going backwards and forwards, sometimes just changing direction. It's light, but it's just changing around and nearly impossible to read. You know, well, the high-end stuff is impossible to read, but you're not even getting clues from your flags or wind, trees or things like that because it's low and it's erratic. So generally, no, really calm is actually not ideal. Really windy is not ideal. In the middle there, constant, stable, and there's then what direction it's coming from depending on how much turbulence is created and that sort of stuff. But anyway, I digress. That's what I wanted to tell you. That's where I was at. I'm looking forward to hopefully get the chance to try the 7mm PRC as a cartridge. I've got to find a chambering and all that sort of stuff, a ream to do that. The 300 Norma is underway. I have most of that sort of stuff happening, and hopefully I'll test it properly. Like I said, no horses in the race. I don't mind which one wins. And it'd be interesting to see. If that short fat, that slightly improved, slightly better shape for case burn or chamber burn versus not so good but better at barrel burn, if that wins, if we see a difference between the Rum and the Norma, but interested to see. Anyway, guys, that's an overview. We're out with that. Listen, keep in mind, we do this stuff out of our own budget and a little bit of help we get from you. If you guys can help us, please do. It really would help us. We'd really like to bring as much of this information as we can. And for the people who like the video, that sort of stuff, subscribe, please, share, like the videos, all that sort of stuff. It really does help us. We'd like to grow the channel. But listen, that's enough of my babble. Thanks for checking in on us, and we'll catch you next time.